me to BP was Clover, who was a bit more of my challenging girl. A girl I always say, where Monty was the dog that changed my life, Clover is the dog taught me more than anybody.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kowalik, and I believe that our dogs connect us to the heart and soul of what really matters in life. So hang out, and we'll take a deep dive into the human-dog connection and explore strategies that will inspire you to create legendary, enlightened partnership with your dog. This is the Enlightened by Dogs podcast. All right, well, welcome back to part 2 of our discussion with Marianne Magin. I hope that you were really inspired by part 1, and part 2 gets pretty juicy, let me tell you. So I know you're going to love part 2. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, I highly recommend that you do that first before you listen to this one, because this is part 2, and so it'll maybe make more sense if you start with part 1. Although you could jump into part 2 and it would still be good. So my recommendation, go back to part 1 from last week and then come back and dive into part 2. All right, let's roll part 2.
And I have done more pictures and paintings and pencil drawings and pen and inks of Clover. And I think it's interesting now that I look at it in retrospect. Obviously, I was working to connect, and I was doing all this art. So you have a story of how, like, you got to this place where you were able to merge your art and your skill at art with your connection with dogs, with your feelings and your heart, and making that connection and expressing yourself through your art. Can you want to tell us a little bit about how, and then that evolved into you providing paintings, custom commissioned art for people, for dog moms that have experienced loss or disconnection. You want to tell us a little bit about that journey? Yeah, no, definitely. So like I said, my dog Monty inspired me to start painting. And an interesting thing, when I started, I was just painting. And everyone would say to me, or many people, I should say, there were people who said to me, oh, you captured the spirit of the dog. Like, you really captured that, and something in the eyes. And I was like, all right, interesting. And then what started to happen was I'd paint a dog, and then I might see, like, it might be a dog that I knew, and I'd meet the dog, and the dog was like coming up to me, like, so happy, like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, did you know that I painted you? Like, okay, that's interesting. So, okay, I kind of took that in. And then I had an experience painting. A friend of mine lost their dog. The dog passed away, and I did a painting. And as I was painting, I listened to music, and they had at the time on my iPad, I had a playlist that was actually, I had set up a whole playlist for Thanksgiving. So it was actually music about being thankful. It's a really beautiful, I happen to love this playlist. And it has, like, I think 8 hours worth of music, and I'm not painting for 8 hours. So this is, like, very random how the songs come on. And as I was painting this dog, a song came on, and it hit me so hard that and I'm painting watercolor. I started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to tell this person about this song. So I actually connected the song to the painting as well. And then the painting got to the person, and they were just like, oh my gosh, this was like, the painting was wonderful. The art was the song was great. And I was like, this is kind of weird and interesting, but okay. And then I started listening to the music, and that was sort of an off thing that first time. But back to the connection, it's interesting because the dog that brought me to BP was Clover, who was a bit more of my challenging girl. A girl I always say, where Monty was the dog that changed my life, Clover is the dog taught me more than anybody. And I have done more pictures and paintings and pencil drawings and pen and inks of Clover. And I think it's interesting now that I look at it in retrospect. Obviously, I was working to connect, and I was doing all this art. So it's very interesting. Now I have my dog Bowie, and again, now I've been in BP for a while. It's like my connection to Bowie is like, I'm like, it's wonderful. Like we're just so connected. And I don't have as many paintings of him. I keep saying I should paint him more. Like he's so beautiful, like, but that drive isn't there. But the real thing that really drove me was I lost my dog, Monty, the dog that changed my life. He changed my life again, actually having hemangiosarcoma unknown to me and having to have a splenectomy and then out of nowhere and then passed away the next day. And I was destroyed, to say the least. I've never been through anything like that in my life. I don't want to go through anything like that again. Or I would do it differently now, I think, having gone through it as I did. But it was very hard, very dark. And it's interesting because the first thing I did that weekend was I did a pen and ink drawing of him. And it's scratchy. And then I kept painting him and painting him and painting him. I couldn't deal with the fact he was gone. It was so shocking and so sudden. And everything had seemed perfectly fine. And then it was like, I was just cut off and I lost that connection. I mean, I lost my connection to myself. I lost my connection to everything, I think, at that time. I was just in a dark place. And I remember all I wanted was to get him back. And I remember I ordered a cuddle clone. So I'm like, maybe that'll make him come back. And I got the cuddle clone. And it was like terrible because it wasn't him. Then finally I had it in me to really paint him. And I painted him. And he sent me a song. And I have that painting. It's sitting in my bedroom. And I put it so that I could look at it every single night. I would look into his eyes. And he was there. He's in the painting. Not like anything else. Like I wanted him to be here in his body, but I couldn't have that. But the painting, I can still look at him and he's still in the painting. And I realized like, if I can do that and that happens for me, that must happen for other people. If they lose their dog, or again, like the loss of connection, you can look into the eyes of that dog that's not around and there's something in there. Like, I don't even know how it happens, but there's something there. And then so when I have friends, their dogs pass away, a lot of times I'll just paint their dogs, I'll paint their cats because it's like something, it just feels like the right thing to do because I want in a way to help them to heal. Because that painting helped me to heal and it helped me maybe to accept. It's an interesting thing, right? You sit with something and I couldn't accept that I lost him, but I could sit with that painting and look at that painting and I would, okay, he's in a way in that painting, but he's not physically here. And somehow that helped. So, yeah, so that was a big influence for me going through that experience.
Yeah. That was hard. I remember when you went through that. I mean, it was painful. And speaking from someone on the other side of your art, yes, most definitely. I mean, when you painted, well, I'm looking at the two paintings behind me, but like you painted Phoenix and, it was hard to lose her. and it was rather sudden, but she was 15 and a half, you know what I mean? And so it was it was a different sort of longing and a different sort of grief than when I lost Dylan, who
Yeah.
you painted, who was only 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't know how, I don't know how you talked about Monty without crying because I was about to cry for you.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't know how I would get through that with Dylan. You know what I mean? Like that was really hard.
That was really hard.
And your painting, he's I look at it every day, and he's in the painting. He's there. He's there. She like I see her and Dylan, you know, he's in the painting. And of course it's not the same, right? As when they were here with us, but they're there and it really helps the connection. And then
And Luke.
Luke hasn't even moved up to the wall yet because I have to pick up his painting and hold it still. I'm not ready to put
Ready.
it on the wall yet. So his painting I pick up every day and look at it.
Oh,
But yes, it's so powerful. It's so powerful to be on the receiving end of that.
it's amazing for me to hear that too. I really appreciate that because, sometimes I send things out and I'm not, they just kind of go. It's like they, then they're there and I get feedback a lot of times. People, oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. But you don't always hear like, oh, to say that the dog is in the painting, like it's what I feel with my Monty painting. I have a paint like I've got in front of me right now. I've got my Dakota. I lost him 11 years ago, and in Monty it's been I think 7 years. So
Wow. Wow. That's it. I can't believe that.
I well, late. It was
Wow.
2015. Yeah,
Wow.
I know it's
That's
amazing.
isn't it like time, right? I mean, woo. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think it's been 4.5 years since I lost Dylan.
Oh
And
yeah,
I mean, it feels like it was yesterday. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It still feels, yeah. So, so it's interesting that when like for me, of course, um, but also like in our community and in your community, like it's our community, you know what I mean? And then you have another community that's, that I has, extensions of friends, that are maybe local and, dog friends. And, so you have this reach and all these connections like all around the world. And from my perspective, what I see, the parts that I see are you painting in at least, half the time from what I know, dogs that have crossed over, that are, on the Rainbow Bridge and the how much that helps others. And you've experienced it for yourself as the like not only as having lost, but also through the painting.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Right.
so when you so you do these paintings for others and like dog moms that have lost their dogs, their dogs have passed away. How like is there like, do you have a sense for like how that helps with processing grief? I mean, because I mean, you've experienced it yourself,
Mhm.
as the artist, and it's helped you process grief in that way. Do you have any sense for how it helps those that receive your paintings?
I think it's that what I said about being able to look into that painting
Mm,
every night, uh, you know, every night before I went to sleep, I have it right so that I can see it straight from my bed. And I'd be like saying good night. and talking to him and seeing him. And that's what I always hope for everyone that that I give it or do a painting of a dog that has passed away, that they have that same exactly what you said. And I think again, because the grief is a loss of connection. I mean, that's what we're grieving, but we're really still connected. So the painting, again, is a way to remember there's that connection in our hearts that's always there, that's never going to leave. And the painting, again, connects to our hearts. And I think being able to sit with that, and like you said, okay, you're going to have a day where Luke's painting, from what you're saying, you're going to be able to put it on the wall. And that's a phase of your healing. Like right now, you're not ready to do that. You've just gone through more loss. So it all is, there's a lot there, and I think it's an evolutionary thing, but everybody will have their own way. And how that painting, what that does for them or how they utilize it is going to be personal to everybody. Everyone's going to have, some people might like hang it on the wall. Some people might be like, I've got to hold this and treasure it and like, hold on to it the way I like when I lost both my dogs. I slept with their collars for nights, because it was like, you're just trying to hang on to something, but it's actually something that you can hang on to, and it's going to be there, and you can have it on your wall, like for as long as you have a wall.
Yeah. So it's like so the connection, which is, let's say, it's invisible, right? We
Right.
always have the connection, even when our dogs are no longer with us in their physical bodies. That stays, but it's invisible. But to have the painting, it's like something tangible
Tangible. Yeah.
that kind of like gels the connection, right? It kind of gives us like a
Yes.
focal point or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. It's a focus of that because especially if it's hard to, it's hard to connect it's hard to connect when you're in that grief. It's hard to connect if you're struggling or you're challenged by your dog. It's hard to connect.
Yes.
So having it's a physical thing that you can connect to. And I think again, like a bridge. It's like a bridge to that connection. So it's a step, like you're not you might not be you might only be able to just look at the painting and be like, oh my gosh, I just want to look at this painting. But it's connecting you back to that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I think that's beyond special that you oftentimes, I don't, maybe always, I don't know, you could tell us, but the piece that I think is extraordinary is that while you're painting someone's dog, whether they're a dog that's passed on or a dog that's still with them, that you often get songs and messages.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. And then of course you pass that on to the human. I love that. So how, like,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you always get something, or is it sometimes, or is it like how does that work for you?
Sometimes, occasionally, a lot of times it works and it happens. And it's interesting because again, the first time it happened, like I explained earlier, I didn't expect it, but I can have times where either I'll just be working songs, and some songs will play that'll be really like touching to me. And I'll be like, oh, this song, but it doesn't get the reaction. And another song will play, and either I'll get completely chills or I just uncontrollably start sobbing, like sobbing. And I'm usually like, okay, I gotta like make note of this song. And it's funny because when I finish the painting, I'll often play the song again. I'll look at the painting and play the song again. So, and I always pass the song on, but occasionally something doesn't come through. And I think it's similar to the, sometimes it's harder to paint the dog. I don't know what's there. It's an interesting thing because I realized early on, I would just paint the dog. Now I actually do a bit, and I actually this is interesting. Energetically, I would
Mhm.
paint and I would end up freezing cold. And like, I realized I needed to almost make it a ceremony. So it's become kind of a sacred thing in a way. I light
Yes.
candles. I do the directions. I like call in whatever
Mhm.
angels, spirits, everything. Just and I think of my dogs. Like if I'm helping these people that have
Mhm.
lost a dog, I want my dogs that have passed away to come and be with me.
Supporting cast. Yeah.
I set up so that I'm all set. And then I do the painting and I consider it almost like it's like a sacred time. I'm painting,
Yeah.
it's a connection, and I'm doing this in this way, which is going to help to possibly heal somebody. So there's that aspect of it. And and then a lot of times the song just it comes through, which is it's really very cool. And like I've had songs for my dog. Sometimes like when I've painted your dogs, I'll have like Phoenix's song will come on, like as I'm
Mm.
like when I painted your other dogs. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting that like when I painted Phoenix, I had the songs that came from my two dogs played. And again, it's
Interesting.
sometimes I
Well,
do Pandora, so it could or whatever, a play thing, so it'll play something. It's really interesting how it happens because it's just like
I
very,
l I
you
love
know,
it. I
random.
love it. So I think we could it would be good to, like, sort of go full circle and bring this idea of connection artist connection kind of full circle and just mention that the way that you offer an easy and tangible way to connect is not just through offering the service of custom paintings, but also you have a card deck
Mhm.
that you have an inspiration card deck that has your art, and you've written a children's book
Yeah.
that it's filled with art. Tell us a little bit about that and how that fits into our connection piece.
Okay, I'll start with the book because I did the book before I did the card deck.
Okay.
The book was something that, I had written a story a while ago. I was inspired by dogs again, right? And it was my Monty that inspired me again to start that book. And I wrote it a long time. I wrote it. It's like a Christmas story. And it's kind of in the cadence of the night before Christmas, and wanted it to be from the dog's perspective. So I wanted it to. So the connection, in a way, is that it's from the dog's perspective. So the book is from the
Mhm.
dog's. The story is from the dog's perspective. Then when I did the art, and I have to say, I have to credit my husband who helped me storyboard the art. He's also an artist and studied film, so he was able to help me storyboard. And he was like worked hard with me to get dynamic views, but we
Mhm.
based everything again, the views are from the dog's perspective. So while the story's from the dog's perspective, the dog is seeing things like in the story, Santa Claus appears in the house, this farm dog. And it's like, what the heck is happening? Who is this stranger in my house? But the first thing you see of Santa is all you see is the dog was sleeping in his bed and there's Santa standing next to him. And he's just like, there's a book, it's Santa's leg. That's all you
Yeah.
see, and then it gets to a point where he's like, what are, he's a good dog guarding his house and he's snarling at Santa. And you're just looking through Santa's legs and seeing the dog snarling. Cause it's what the dog is feeling. And the dog in the end, kind of gives Santa what for, like, Santa, what the heck are you doing? And he ends up helping out Santa by, um, having him have his, I almost said sheep, have his reindeer wear bells so that dogs are aware that somebody's coming and that they aren't going to go crazy and chase the, uh, the reindeer away. So, and then it was interesting because then I had my dog, Bowie, and Bowie became the model for the book. So it was, again, I was connecting as I was drawing Bowie, I was connecting to him as all the so it's interesting. It's funny. I was saying I didn't draw paint Bowie a lot, but I've drawn Bowie a lot because
Mhm.
he is the model for Shep, along with a little bit of Monty. I've got a little bit of Monty's coloring, but it's mostly Bowie was my model. Um,
Wow.
and a
So
very good one.
it's a great book. I mean, the illustrations are gorgeous and the story is beautiful. So if you're listening and if you have children in your life, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, um, children in the neighborhood, we
Children
will
at
link.
heart.
Yeah, we will link up the link to Marianne's book. It's a great gift for any children in your life. And don't tell anyone, but I have a copy and I love it's just beautiful. I look at it periodically. So you don't even have to be a child.
No, it's for dog lovers. Totally. It's a fun Christmas book for dog lovers. It really, I
I
can't
love
put a
it.
gauge on it.
I love the book. All right. So now, and then we also have this beautiful card deck that you
Yes.
made, which is just extraordinary. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I was actually thinking about even another book, and I guess we just finished up the coach training, and I was like, I had this idea of like just little like partnership phrases. And I was like, oh, well, what if I took photos like of my daughter when she was a toddler and a little girl? I used to love, and this is interesting because you brought up the photography earlier. So this keys back to the photography. I used to follow my child and dogs around my property like the paparazzi, literally with this giant lens. Like I was taking photos of like, you know, animals in Africa. And I'd just be like, whatever. I'd take so many photos and I got great, great photos. So I was like, maybe I'll do this. So I was starting to set it up. And I think actually I was talking to you, you had I've always loved the idea of doing a card deck, like an inspiration oracle card deck. I feel like it's not, it's not so woo woo or it's as woo woo as you want it to be because it's kind of like, it's all partnership ideas and it's all the photos and I worked with a like an editing program and I kind of artsied up the photos a bit.
Hmm.
So each card has a partnership idea. Do I have it sitting here? I can find it. I don't know where I put it right now. So it might be like, what if it were easy? Or it might be like, I have one that's just, I love you. So like if you were having a day where you're just like, oh, or even every day, you could just pull a card and be like, what's a good thing for me to think about with me and my dog today? Pull a card and it's, like I honor your agency or whatever it might be. But there's
Yeah.
all different and it goes from like, you help me or you listen to me or I hear you, all just simple little phrases that you can just pick a card and get inspired. You can pick a card and you can use it as an oracle. You could actually use it as an oracle deck and be like, okay, I have this issue. What is something that I'd want to focus on? And pick a card. And actually, I've found that it's pretty cool because it does work that way. You can do a spread. It's like you can do it. You can use it in any
Yeah.
way. Um, yeah, yeah, they're my we know the way partnership.
Yeah, it's
Card.
power. They're power. So simple but powerful phrases that are they're like core guideposts for how to live a life, with our dogs or just in general, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're beautiful. Yeah. The child, the girl child and the dog photos are gorgeous and they're definitely artsified.
Yeah.
They're really pretty, really well done. So so Marianne does have those decks available. So we'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. If you love card decks like I do, you can't have enough of them. And especially if they have like dogs and partnership, principles, like what could be better than that? Everyone should have one of those. like if you're listening to this, you need to have a dog. And of course, and we'll also link to Marianne's, you have a Facebook page,
Yep.
Artful
Sure.
Paw Designs, where you post some of your paintings and stuff like that. So people could also check out your artwork, your paintings that you've done, and commission you to do their dog if they are
Yeah,
so
definitely.
moved. I think because I think everyone should have at least one Marianne Magin painting of their dog for sure. I'm blessed to
Yes.
have several, so and I'm looking forward to the next ones. I don't know when they'll be, but I'm sure it won't be too long. All right, Marianne, this has been so wonderful. Like like if you wanted to leave us with like one last bit of wisdom or advice or takeaway or something, anything come to mind? Like one last thing that one last thought you want to leave us with on for our end note here?
I think maybe it's that everybody should believe that they are an artist in whatever way, that and that they can connect through their art. Like you can, whatever it is, if you doodle, that's great. If
Yeah.
you do amazing paintings, that's amazing. If you just like to dance in your living room, that's great. You like to dance with your dog in your living room. That's awesome. you know, or whatever it might be, like you like to arrange the leaves in the fall in your yard. I don't know, whatever it is. But I think everybody is an artist in whatever way, even if you don't believe it. I believe that you are. So take that. I believe
I
it.
love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And not only are you an artist, but you can use whatever expression that is for you to connect more deeply with your dog. So thank you so much, Maria. This has been great. I really loved having this conversation. And uh, I don't know, this may have to be two parts.
Thank goodness. I told
But
you I'm going to talk.
it was so good. It's like we had to keep going, so we may have to do this in two parts. So either
Oh my
way,
goodness.
it's been wonderful, and I know that everyone is going to love it. So thank you,
Thank
and I
you.
will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening. And hey, if you would like to work with me so that I can help you discover the missing pieces you need so that you and your dog can finally be happy and enjoy life together, then head on over to dancingheartsdogacademy.com and request your invitation to join us in the Brilliant Partners Academy when the doors open for the next enrollment. See you next time, and remember, a brilliant partnership with your dog makes your whole life brilliant.